I've told you before that there are certain things about the nomad capitalist lifestyle that you have to experience for yourself in order to fully understand. You can't just learn it from the sidelines or by researching. You need to dive in and do it. And one of those things comes down to tax deductions. A lot of people in high tax countries are making inorganic decisions about their personal finances or their business in order to get a tax deduction. I'm going to share with you an article from Forbes which says why that's a bad idea and share my comments. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of this best-selling book on Amazon and the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you are treated best. More at nomadcapitalist.com. What we talk, of course, a lot about here at Nomad Capitalist since day one is how taxes are going up in the Western world. We've been predicting that for some time. Now those days are here. And you can move yourself, move your investments, move your business overseas. There's a procedure to do it, including our tax-friendly quadrant, to legally reduce your taxes. Even if you're an American, you too can reduce your taxes. And one of the things I said is you were going to see benefits to doing that you may not imagine. One of the benefits we've talked about before that I've seen when I'm actually working with people is they're not growing their business enough because they've reached a certain plateau and now they're paying 45 or 50 or even more in some European countries, 55%. When you're giving more money to the government in taxes than you're taking home, you start to, whether consciously or subconsciously, say, what do I need this for? And there's not a lot of motivation in some cases to keep growing the business. And so we've seen people where they have, let's say, a $2 million business, they're taking home $1 million or something like that. And then when they move overseas, the business shoots up. They didn't expect it to happen. They figured, hey, they'll keep most of the $2 million. They'll keep an extra $800,000 a year, but they didn't think they'd make an extra $800,000 a year in profit because now they're motivated because they're keeping that extra part of the money. And so here's an article from Forbes called Avoid the Tax Breaks That Cost You Money. It's by Bob Carlson, who's a senior contributor to Forbes, and it talks about this issue. I'm going to comment on this. Bob says, people frequently tell me that they took a financial action, at least partly, because it would save a few tax dollars. Too often, the careful analysis of the situation reveals the action leaves them with fewer after-tax dollars. This is something where, already speaking to the issue that I'm talking about, where people hate to pay taxes. I understand that. And so people go out and they make bad business decisions, bad personal finance decisions because they think, hey, I'll pay extra money so I can write part of it off in taxes, which just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. A classic case, Bob says, is the mortgage interest deduction. People often believe that owning a home with a mortgage leaves them with a lower tax bill than paying off their mortgage or not owning a home because of the deduction for mortgage interest. Some years ago, that was true in most cases. Many people were in a 50% or higher income tax bracket. After taxes, they were out only 50 cents or less of each dollar of interest paid. In effect, the government was paying at least as much of the interest as they were, but things are changed. Tax rates are much lower for most Americans now, which not if you're a 7- or 8-figure entrepreneur. I mean, they're lower, but they're still ridiculous. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, each dollar of interest paid only saves 22 cents in taxes, which, by the way, applies to any tax bracket. I don't mean if your tax bracket is 70%, are you going to go out and incur an expense and pay an extra 30 cents just to have the government save 70? No. It's even worse. After the 2017 tax law, Bob says, the standard deduction was doubled. You deduct itemized expenses, mortgage interest, etc. Because of that, only a minority of Americans now can deduct itemized expenses. Of course, there's still reasons to have a home mortgage. I don't agree with that. One of the benefits of living overseas, keeping most or all of your money, is you get to, with much less opportunity cost, pay off your home mortgage, own property paid for with cash, which, by the way, when you go overseas to a lot of places, especially if you're not a resident or a citizen there or have a job there or pay taxes there, you're going to have a hard time getting a mortgage anyway. And in some of the countries we talk about, the mortgage rates would be much higher than where you're living because that's how you can earn much higher interest in those countries in the bank. But nevertheless, to me, the reason that a lot of people have a home mortgage that perhaps shouldn't is because they're paying so much in tax where they don't have the cash flow, and so they need to put every dollar to better use. Obviously, you should put every dollar to good use, but quite frankly, I think having zero debt is a good thing to have. Bob says, but saving taxes isn't usually a major factor. The same analysis, he says, goes to some other tax deductions. Too many people believe that an expense is free or nominal when it's deductible. The deduction might make your out-of-pocket cost less than $1 for each dollar spent, but you're still bearing most of the cost. And so this is where we come to the idea of business. Now, I think that from a personal finance perspective, if you go from a 40% tax rate, we're talking total, or 50% tax rate, and you go down to 0 or 1 or 5 or even 10, right? You have a lot of places you can move, and you can do that. Again, even as an American, you can get your taxes down. When you have more cash flow coming in the door, you're going to be more motivated to work. You're going to put more effort into expanding your business. You're just going to feel better. There's just a sense of relief that you're not going to understand until you're there. It's like getting a second passport. You do not know the feeling of having options until you are holding that second passport in your hand. No amount of research or calling people or consultate, no amount of that is going to truly give you that feeling. When I say feeling, I mean feeling. You're going to feel it in your body, not just thinking, but how you're going to feel. And the same thing is true when it comes to tax deductions. It's great to theorize. I've talked about how when I first started my business in my early 20s and I first got the big tax bill, I started doing well in my early 20s. I started at 19, 21, 22, whatever it was, started doing pretty well. And then it's like, oh yeah, shoot, that libertarian teenager who thought taxes were for the birds is now getting the first actual tax bill, and it feels different than just sitting on your bed in high school reading the Libertarian Party newsletter and complaining about taxes. There's a different feeling. And I can tell you how many business owners are making inorganic decisions, as Bob says, where you're buying something thinking, oh, I'll get a deduction. Or how many people push media buys or spending of whatever kind to December 30th or December 27th because they want to get it all into this tax year or whatever the tax year is where you are. And by the way, that may not always be allowed. I mean, you're not always allowed to just throw it into one tax year. You may need to apportion it or split it up or put it in the year where the services are being performed. I mean, it's not always even allowed. But how many people are doing that? Now, why would you go out and spend money that perhaps doesn't need to be spent to rack up a tax deduction? People, I remember, living in Arizona as an adult, and there'd be ads, give money to this charity. It's your last chance before the end of the year to get a tax deduction. I'm all for giving money to charity, but you know what? I can give a lot more money to charity when I'm not giving 43% of my income over to the world's worst charity called the government. And so, to me, the root of this, now people will say, well, not everyone can move. Well, sure, not everyone wants to save on their taxes. Not everyone wants to go where they're treated best. But the root thing here, this is where go where you're treated best. This is why it's the 5 magic words. Because there is a magic to saying, I'm going to start making only organic decisions in my life. I'm going to start letting all the fruits of my labor, or the vast majority of the fruits of my labor, or my investments, or what have you, come to me. And that is going to drive an entirely different set of decisions in my life where I'm going to make different decisions about giving to charity, about reinvesting in my business, about hiring more people, about maybe I give my staff a raise, I give them more things to do. Whatever the case may be, too many people are saying, oh, it's deductible, right? I'm going to spend that money because it's deductible. Tax rates are, I believe, for the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneurs higher than what Bob is talking about. And this is from a personal financial perspective, he may be right. And by the way, if you are the average household, Joe Biden and other politicians want to make your tax rate lower. So this will be even better advice for you. But someone's going to foot the bill for that as more people in this system go to pay 0 tax. And if you are a successful business owner or investor, you're going to be the one whose taxes are going up. So you may, even if you are itemizing your deductions, it's just going to be a bad deal because you're making decisions based on inorganic things. When if you went overseas, if you're an American, you move to Puerto Rico, or if you move overseas, if you cut your tax residence ties in your country, whatever the case may be, you go where you're treated best. I can promise you there's going to be a whole different feeling of options. There's going to be a whole new approach to life, and you're going to start making decisions organically, not to chase tax deductions, and that's going to drive a whole wave of change. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.